What's up guys? I hope you're all doing really well. For today's video, we're going to have a tone challenge. We're going to try dial in some tones with the diminutive Line 6 Pocket Pod, the baby bean as I like to call it. Look how small it is. Does it actually have any decent tones lurking within? Let's find out. Alright, let's get the ball rolling. I've got my YJM Strat with the stock DiMarzios in it, and I'm plugging straight into the Pocket Pod, straight into my UAD Apollo Twin interface. There's no post-processing on any of this, and luckily there is a software editor. That's kind of, I guess, how this little thing is designed to work, because it is such a small little unit. It literally fits in your pocket if you've got decent sized pockets, and there's only basic controls on the front. So I'm going to do everything in the software editor, and kind of like I did with the old Zoom 707, aim to dial in, you know, a usable cleanish kind of tone, a usable crunchy kind of tone, and then some kind of lead tone. So if you look at the editor, it does look a bit clunky, especially compared to modern software editors like Axe Edit for the Axe Effects or HX Edit for the Helix, but you've got control over the amp knobs there and your effects section. You can even put in notes for the type of song or guitar that you created the preset on. So I'm starting with this black panel amp. You can see the settings on here. Let's just hear it on the neck pickup with no effects. So you know when people say that digital modelers sound a little bit kind of like dull and lifeless, this is normally what I expect them to be talking about, but this is kind of usable. I think we can get somewhere with this. The first thing I do is probably just drop a bit of bass and maybe add a bit of mid-range in there as well as a bit of drive, because I wouldn't mind a little bit of grit on this. That's already much better. I think, though, I need to change the cab model to something that I'm going to jive with a little bit more. Let's try this British high gain number 3. I like that a little bit better already. Let's just try number 2. No, let's try number 1. Again, no, let's try another cab model. So far that high gain number 3 is the winner. Let's try a modern Class A. I'm going to stick with what I liked there, British high gain number 3. Let's have a listen to that. That's pretty usable, a little bit bassy, so I'll just kick the bass down a little bit, add a bit more treble, and let's add a bit of reverb. We can have a room reverb or a spring reverb. Let's hear the spring. Let's hear the room. That's getting somewhere. I'm not minding this too much at all, to be honest. It actually feels okay. It's not as bad as I expected, because I haven't had a whole lot of experience on this particular generation of modelers. I went from like Zoom 707 to Axe Effects Ultra, which is a pretty big jump. Nevertheless, let's add some effects because they're bypassed at the moment. We can have single effects or we can have combos. So let's try, with this kind of sound, let's try, can I have a compressor and, I can't have a compressor and a trem. That really bums me out, but I can have a delay and a compressor, so let's do that. The delay I will leave off. The compressor, I've got the ratio is 1.4 to 1. Let's face it, if you can't get through a gig where you need a kind of cleanish compressed sound with that type of tone, then maybe you need to look at other things, because that is totally fine. Let's add a bit of delay. What do we got in terms of milliseconds? Let's just hear it. So that is a little bit of slap right there. We can make it. How long can we make this? Wow, we can get quite a bit of delay. This is like over 2 seconds of delay. That's pretty cool. That might be pretty handy for the kind of lead sounds. I want to hear the trem though. Let's hear the delay in the trem. That might be cool. That's a pretty good sounding trem, I think. It kind of reminds me in the trem of the tremolo that's in the old M series effects, which I really, really like. I need to track down and do a review of at some point. So that's the trem. What other effects do we have in here? We've got delay in chorus, delay in flanger, delay in swell. That might be cool. There's just a straight up rotary speaker. Let's hear how the rotary sounds in this. It's not the most authentic kind of rotary speaker I've ever heard, but it sounds pretty good, and we can choose between a fast and a slow speed, which isn't too bad. Let's turn that off for now. We can also hit the dist button and see what that does. I'm guessing it's like a channel on this amp. That actually sounds really good. I like that. I'm pretty happy with this for a kind of Fendery sound. Let's leave it at that and see if we can dial in something a little bit crunchy. I mean, there's these boutique models, there's California Crunch, there's some Class A sounds in there. Let's maybe try one of those and see if we can get like a kind of gritty, voxy thing. Or should I do more of like a plexi kind of thing? British high gain? Let's go with that. Let's see what this sounds like. That kind of sounds pretty potty to me at the moment. Let's go to this British high gain number 3 impulse. Oh yeah, that room reverb is a little bit too much, so let's bring the decay and the density down a little bit. Yeah, let's hit dist because that worked before on the other amp. Little bit too bassy at the moment, so let's bring that down. Now it's a bit too trebly, so let's bring that down. What does a presence control do? Is that actually doing anything? It doesn't really sound like it's making a huge difference. I'll just leave it off because that's where it was before. Mid's all the way up with this thing. Well, that's a sound. The litmus test is to play Burn by Deep Purple on this. You know, that may not be the most authentic kind of Plexi or 800 sound, but it's actually pretty enjoyable to play. What I'm noticing with all of these is that feel-wise, all the models are pretty compressed, and you know, that may not be the most authentic thing, but it actually makes it pretty easy to play, which is kind of nice. Let's chuck some delay on this. Let's go just with a straight up delay. And where are we? Let's bring it down a little bit, shall we, boys? Bring the feedback down and leave the level where it is. What does this do? I could sit here and jam on that. That's not a bad kind of, you know, gain sound at all. But let's go next level and see if I can get a really, really high gain sound. Oh, God, it's got line 6 insane. We have to do the insane mode, guys. Let's go straight for that. And I'll keep this same cabinet just to keep things fair. Oh, God, what's this going to sound like? Hey, whenever this came out, I'm sure this was an insane tone. I'll show you how to really dial these things in authentically to keep with the era. Mids on 0, bass all the way up, treble all the way up. But there is a noise gate. And if I turn the reverb off, maybe this will be really staccato and... I mean, it's certainly making my really mellow sounding Strat kind of sound like my humbucker equipped guitars. So, you know, again, that's it's kind of just pushing everything through this really thin filter of sameness. But it does make it really easy to play. I'm really sorry about that particular sound, guys. Let's actually get some mid-range in here. That's a nice mid-rangey kind of lead sound. You know, I'm sure you could track something with this and chuck it in there and it would work. Let's just try another amp model. I'm pretty keen to try these Class A models. What's interesting is everything kind of resets to these default values here. So let's just hear this. You know, that definitely kind of has a bit of that Vox character in there, which is nice. It's not just kind of like lots and lots of treble. You can hear that kind of mid-range, almost kind of sandpapery thing happening. that's that's kind of voxy. I think everything here is kind of like, we're living in this era of just incredible music technology in general. And I mean, something like this thing here, the Axe FX3, in many respects sounds better than my amps. It sounds more like amps than amps, which, it's pretty incredible just how good we have it, whether you're using an Axe FX or a Helix or a Kemper. The Boss GT1000 sounds epic, even the Mooer GE200, which I'm sure doesn't cost that much more money than one of these Pocket Pods would have cost when it came out. Just the quality of modeling and the feature set that we have now is pretty amazing, but, this Pocket Pod doesn't actually sound bad. You could use this when you're tracking, and, there is that whole era of music where the Pod Bean came in, and it was a solution when you had to record guitars direct. And I can see why, because if you chuck this into a mix with a bunch of other instruments and the mission statement isn't get the most epic guitar tone ever, it's just get something that kind of sounds like a Marshall or something that kind of sounds like a Vox, then this can do it. And this is a tiny little device as well, which I am pretty impressed by. So yeah, there's a quick little tone challenge with the Line 6 Pocket Pod. It was way easier to dial stuff in on this thing than the Zoom 707. So if there's other units that you want to hear me dial in, let me know in the comments. And if I can get my hands on them, then I would be more than happy to do that at some point. That's the Line 6 Pocket Pod. I've been Leon. You guys have been fantastic. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, the like button, the comment button, all that kind of good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.